Look, anytime you think about Caitlin Clark's sophomore WNBA season, it's more what could have been than what was, right? And what we missed due to the injuries. And obviously, Clark was hurt pretty bad. You know, the ankle injury, the fact that she didn't make it back for the playoffs. And Stephanie White has said she's still working her way back to 5-on-5, hopefully by the end of the month. So, you know, a long process there. The highlights that we did get were compelling and telling and show you the joy that she brings to the court, whether it was, you know, hitting that shot over Brianna Stewart and the laughs that inspired, or even in the preseason, the logo shot over Team Brazil, or the touchdown pass to Sophie Cunningham. All those things that you know are so amazing and why you look forward to the future, but you lament a little bit the fact of the past that Clark couldn't be there with the bunch that made the run. And you know, the team itself shared some of the highlights and footage from this past season, including that touchdown pass to Sophie Cunningham that I just referenced, which was off of a block shot here. Get it out, gets it back. Touchdown fever, courtesy of Ryan Ruocco. And, you know, that is part of what makes Clark so compelling on the basketball court. You know, and then there's all the other highlights. And, you know, they shared a 20-minute highlight footage. Obviously, I'm not going to play 20 minutes of highlights, but, you know, a little bit of Caitlin on the floor, and just you see her in uniform and you remember, oh yeah, the screaming at the sun, you know, motioning to the crowd, step back threes, all the things that energy. There's the Stewie play that I was talking about, the passes, all of that makes her so dynamic, and I really believe is the reason and the impetus for Caitlin Clark's fame, right? Like that Brazil player made the TikTok, you might be wondering how I found myself in this situation, right? That is Caitlin Clark in a nutshell. But beyond that are all these other discussions that she gets thrown into. And look, everybody does it. I mean, I'm doing a video on Caitlin Clark right now. Everybody does it, but it sometimes it gets hijacked to a certain extent. And Stephanie White was on the Fever Insider show with Chloe and Brian, and I'll link their full show in the description. But she talked about that a little bit, and you know, before she had said what that Caitlin is a pawn in other people's games, you know, a pawn, if you will. Fever Insider with Chloe and Hank. It says here, but his first name, Brian, or at least according to his handle there.
Look, I don't think that a lot of things that are thrown out around in social media and in you know, whatever the conversations are Caitlin's life. I think people are talking about Caitlin and, you know, projecting, you know, whatever they feel at the time. I think the most important thing, you know, for me, when Jake was asking the question, is just that she's so mature beyond her years. I mean, the way that she handles celebrity, the way that she handles, you know, being in the spotlight and competing at a high level, and really has, you know, over the last however many years. You know, I remember I was calling the Iowa game at Maryland her junior year, and I was staying at the same hotel as they were, and it was like a pro event, because at the hotel, like, fans were lined up out the door. You know, they had to line to wall it off and fence it off, rope it off, you know, the area. And at the time, I think I said it's like Taylor Swift 2.0, and it literally is like Taylor Swift 2.0. And because of that, her name gets thrown into a lot of conversations that have absolutely nothing to do with her or her interests. Her name grabs headlines, her name grabs attention, her name is clickbait, her name is utilized in a way that very few people and athletes are. It's in the same sphere as LeBron, as Serena Williams, as Tiger Woods, as Taylor Swift. And so, you know, I wish that Caitlin was able to just live her life. However, you know, with the things that she's accomplished, you know, there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of attention that comes because she's elite at what she does. And she handles it in a way that I'm not sure most 23-year-olds would.
You know, and Caitlin Clark is just a 23-year-old young woman who loves to play basketball. But, you know, Stephanie White got at something there a little bit when she's talking about the Taylor Swift 2.0 or the crowds that were following Caitlin in her junior year, she said. Because, you know, Caitlin really burst on the scene in a lot of ways. There was the Michigan game with the viral highlights. And then there was that NCAA tournament run in her junior year against Louisville, against South Carolina. Those huge performances before the Angel Reese moment, which took things to another level. And then her senior year, which had the crossover at Kinnick. And then obviously they go back to the national championship game, all those ratings, records. And then she goes on to the WNBA. And people seem to forget sometimes the origin story, right? They make the story whatever they want it to be. And a lot of times, again, that is exclusive to social media. I've made this point plenty of times before. The people that buy tickets, the people that show up in the arenas, the people that cheer, they're the people that matter. They're the people that are actually a part of this phenomenon, rather than the people that are trying to spin certain narratives or get off certain agendas, or whatever the case may be. But what was shared at the top of this video is exactly why Caitlin Clark's name generates the headlines that Stephanie White, alluded to, because it was her game that brought people in, because people were so excited to see her play. And that's why there was, sorrow, I guess is the word for it, that she was not able to play so much of this season. And then when she's not able to play, the reason her name gets thrown around is even more divorced from the court, because she hasn't been on the court. And the whole pawn thing was, I think, in really a reference to the Napheesa Collier reference with Kathy Engelbert and the WNBA CBA negotiations. And, Caitlin Clark, as soon as her name was mentioned, it was lead story A, right? The WNBA was back on the debate shows and all that after a little bit of an absence. And hence is the power. What's the Spider-Man saying is, with great power comes great responsibility. And Caitlin has shown nothing that, indicates she's not able to handle all that, but her coach clearly cares. And that's an important thing to note too, because this is somebody who's followed her, somebody that's familiar with her, somebody that went against her, and now somebody that's coached her. And it's also somebody that is used in the same way to make this adversarial relationship, because it's content if Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark aren't compatible. Even though the Fever, Caitlin Clark put out an all caps Stephanie White post in the midst of the Fever making that run without her, and all the injuries that they were able to manage. So she has firsthand experience probably of how that all works. But the most important thing is that they'll figure out all the dynamics as far as play style and roster and personnel, and when to go full bore, when to rein it in a little bit, all those semantic dynamics. But it does appear or not appear, it's very clear that Caitlin Clark has a coach that cares about her, which is important.